Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome back to the Core Women Podcast. I'm so excited to welcome Noemi Beres to the show, who is the co-owner of Podcast Connections, a podcast booking agency that connects experts and entrepreneurs to the right platforms to share their messages. With a background in online marketing and a deep love of creativity and communication, Noemi brings a unique blend of strategic insight and artistic heart to everything she does, to include podcast booking. Let's get ready to jump right into this and welcome Noemi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Summer. It's an honor to be here today, and I made it, so it's
Yay! It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm so excited to jump into this and get started and find out more about you. But before we dive into your professional evolution, could you describe your journey to me in one word to this point, and why is that word important to you?
One word for me is resilient. So I was always a resilient type of woman. I re-emerged, rebuilt myself many times because as an entrepreneur, we go through this, and also in business and personal life. So yeah, I'm kind of a resilient woman when it comes to business and personal life too.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about that resilience and what you mean by building out many times. So I want to know, tell us more.
Sure, of course. So I was born and raised in Hungary in Central Europe, moved around a bit in Europe. I was an exchange student when I was 16 in Denmark, and I learned Danish. So I have a master's degree in Danish linguistics, and then decided to move to Ireland and live there for 7 years, worked there, and then ended up in Cyprus 14 years ago. So we moved around a bit, and in 2007, we started our first business with my husband. It was an online travel-related business. So becoming an entrepreneur was really interesting to me. I just left my job. I had no clue what I'm getting into myself when I became an entrepreneur, like, everybody else. And so it was a big, huge learning curve. But I really enjoyed what I was doing up till 2020. I was doing online marketing, social media marketing, travel writing, blogging. There was a lot of stuff included. But then the pandemic hit in 2020 and lost the business because it was travel related, like everything else. And so basically we had to start from scratch. And that was when we started our own podcast booking agency. So that's about the resiliency, that we had to switch because we had no other choice, basically. We were told that like in 2 weeks' time, everything is going to back to normal during COVID, but obviously it didn't happen. So that's why we had to, figure it out. And also there were other things going on in my personal life because in 2019, my dad passed away because of cancer. I lost my grandma because of an accident. So 2019 was a really hard year for me. And then COVID happened. So like my life was all about most of the time, like rebuilding, reemerging. And yeah, that was it. So that's why it's my word.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of resiliency there. There's a lot of getting back up. What was within you to actually pick back up every time and then be able to shift so that you could find success in something else? What was that inside of you? There are innate things with us and learn things within us that help us do that. But what do you think it is for you that really helped you kind of pull up those bootstraps and get going again?
I guess I was kind of born like this. Since I was a kid, I could always pick it up myself. So thanks to my, parents, they always supported me, whatever happened in my life. And I guess I think you can learn resiliency, obviously, during your life, but somehow you have to born with it too. And you have those bones or those muscles in you that just really push you. And my dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. So there were 2 long years suffering from cancer. I learned a lot during that time about me, about life and how precious life is, and about gratitude and being thankful for my life. So for me, that also helped me. And when you have a child, I mean, obviously we need to, pay for tuition, need to raise them. And I just couldn't let myself go and, just be in that very dark place. I need to pick myself up. I'm an only child. I was the only support to my mom. So yeah, I just had to be there, had to stand up for my mom, for my son. I had to be there for everyone.
That makes sense. And so, thank you for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and providing that detail, that information. I absolutely believe, just as you do, that we have something innate that we're born with in us that helps us get back up. It's stories like yours that help other people sometimes when they can't find that spark, that energy to get back up. So it's nice to hear from other people that they've been through similar things, but still have been able to keep going. And so thank you for sharing that. Noemi, you've been in the online marketing world since 2007. How did your journey lead you into the podcasting space?
Yeah, it was kind of an accidental decision. I mean, basically, thankfully, we had a mentor from Ireland, and he started a course on how to run a podcast booking agency. Yeah, it was easy. It was kind of a low cost investment. And why not? I mean, we should start something. To be honest, Dr. Summer, I had no clue about podcasting before 2020. I mean,
Wow.
in Europe, we're still behind when it comes to podcasting, podcast guesting, or running a podcast. I'm still trying to explain to my friends what I'm doing. They still don't understand. And so we are really behind when it comes to podcasting. So for me, it was completely new, but it sounded really interesting. We set up a website. We started to just have our first clients from the US and Canada and the UK. And we just took, small steps. The small steps approach obviously worked. And
Yeah.
yeah, and we learned as we went along. And you fake it until you make it. I don't always like that expression, but in our case, it worked. So obviously we had to learn how to start, how to launch a podcast booking agency, how to run it, how to interact with people, because it's completely different what I was doing before, since 2007.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really unique way of approaching marketing, right?
Yeah.
And yet you brought those skills that you already had and brought them forward and created something new. So that's really cool. Let's start with preparation. What are the key steps you recommend to someone researching a podcast before going on as a guest?
I mean, first and foremost, you need to find the right podcast that is, it's good for your business, good for your brand. So it involves a lot of listening. So you have to listen to those podcasts. You have to find them on Apple Podcast or on YouTube or other platforms. And you just have to dig deep into what's your business about. And you have to decide what kind of podcast you're targeting, because there are like, I don't know, 3 million podcasts out there right now, or even more. So you have to figure out what's best and what aligns best with your brand and with your business. And that's the first step. And listen to those episodes, at least 1-2 episodes before you even approach a podcast, because that's crucial. So you won't end up like an e-commerce expert. You won't end up on a yoga or a health related podcast, because it happens
Right.
sometimes that you pitch yourself to people that they have no clue why you did that, because you didn't do your research. So you have to do your research first and foremost.
Absolutely. I love that you say that, because I've been podcasting for 7 years, over 7 years now, and have been the host to over 350 plus
Wow.
people. And so,
Congratulations.
oh, well, thank you. Like you, I got into this knowing nothing, like just starting from scratch
Yeah.
and knowing that it would be a great way to create community, right? And I just jumped all in. And if you go back and listen to my first podcast, you're like, what was that? Right. And we learn. We learn as we do. We learn as we go along. So if you're courageous enough, be on a podcast, start a podcast. And here's the thing. I love that recommendation of researching. When you approach a podcaster, you want to know what their podcast is about, because
Yeah.
they're going to be a little put off if you're like, "Hey, I'm such and such." Like you said, maybe somebody into yoga and they're talking about finance, unless it's like fiscal
Yeah.
yoga. I mean, like, how do you blend the two, right? And There's a possibility that you can, but I mean, really, you want to do your research. You want to know who you're talking to.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I love that there's somebody out there like you that is doing that research as well, because I know as a business owner who is matching people with podcasters, I know you've had to listen to a lot of podcast episodes probably yourself.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
so what do you think separates an okay guest from a great guest? And what are the common pitfalls to avoid?
Yes. First of all, come prepared, because when you are prepared, you're not just an okay guest, you are a brilliant guest. And I mean, as a podcast booking agency, we help also our clients to get prepared. You have to get your bio ready when you approach a podcast host. It doesn't have to be a novel. So like try to just stick to one paragraph and just provide maybe a sample interview to the podcast host so they can check it out. What did you do before? And I think it's really important to be super clear about your topics and talking points. And if you're not so clear about them, so try to work on them and try to prepare, or try to make a mock interview at home with your spouse or with your friends, because it's really important to get into a habit to talk to someone. Because although this is a friendly conversation, you still have to provide the audience with value and not just, winging things. When I got on your show, 2 days ago, I listened to one of your episodes and I loved it. And I knew that you're going to ask that very first question. and it's like, God, it's very good that I listened to it, because I had no clue that you had just like very specific question. And that's what I keep telling to my clients: to listen to episodes, come prepared, be super clear about your topics, talking points, and you can have some cheat sheets around you when you are on a podcast, so you can go through them. It will be still authentic, but you will come prepared, and then you will be an amazing guest, not just an okay guest.
You mentioned, which I really love, the authenticity. Every
Mm.
person that you speak with is going to be a new opportunity for an authentic conversation. And even our
Yes.
conversation, you may have said some of the similar things on other podcasts. However, my personality, your personality is going to create a new interesting story. I'm going to pull out different things from your story that you may never have mentioned on somebody else's podcast. So that's what I love. I love that authenticity, that co-creation of sorts that we're having right here that you can have in every podcast. But again, what are you leaving the listeners with?
And that's the most important thing. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, how can a podcast guest keep the conversation flowing naturally while still delivering value and staying on message?
Again, come prepared, because once you're prepared, you can totally do it. You can be in the flow. And also, I mean, be engaging. I mean, try to be not so stiff, or be conversational, and really see a conversation between a podcast host and a guest as a friendly conversation having over a dinner or a cup of coffee. So try to let loose a little bit, not too much, but like find that, sweet balance when you can just really feel that kind of vibe with the host and that kind of energy between us, because it's all about energy. And for me, it's really important. And once you are on a podcast, focus on that podcast. Don't do tail to tail interviews, like 5 per day, because it won't work. The podcast host will notice that you are kind of burning out, you are bored, even your sound can sound bored. And I think you just need that kind of energy that you can give to the audience. And also, what you just said, I think is really important, to come with a message, with something to give away to the audience. Because if I could just have one person who was listening, that's already a win for me. And they learned something from me. And I'm so grateful for that.
It is so important to come with that why and how you're trying to help other people in community, right? Because I do believe people love stories.
Yes.
They absolutely love stories. However, they also are listening to a podcast because they want to see what can they gain from it? What can they take away from it? How can they apply that information maybe to their lives in their own
Yeah.
way? And so it can be your episode can always be a first step for somebody.
Yes.
And when we think about it as a first step, that's a big deal
Mm.
because a lot of times people get stuck in not knowing their first step. And so if you give some ideas about the first step, the second step, they can somehow apply it to their lives and get excited.
Absolutely. And For me, it was like the more open and the more vulnerable you are during an interview, it's a bigger chance that you get through them and they will understand your message and your story.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, Noemi, what has been a time maybe that you were on a podcast or in a conversation as you were talking about your story that you've been really vulnerable and you've told something where you're like, oh my gosh, that just came out of my mouth. I never said that before. And I've had some of those situations on this podcast. Have you had a situation like that? And how did you work through that?
It was really interesting. I can't exactly remember what I was saying, but something about my personal life and how it's connected. Yes, I remember because now I remember. I do a lot of podcast guesting about like how to be a great podcast guest, but I'm also an artist and I usually talk about how art can help to heal you and how to get out of anxiety, stress, grief with the help of art. I did some courses on art therapy, positive psychology. And there was this interview, and I started to talk about during my dad's transition, I was with him in Hungary and I was making collages, and it was really dark. And I was sitting in the room with him, and I was still making those collages. And I never really talked about that, like how dark they were and what represented they for me. So that was like a moment. It's like, geez, I never talked about that. And I didn't even tell that to my friends. And it just slipped out basically out of me. And that was kind of a very vulnerable moment for me because I never shared that with anyone before.
Yeah. And how did you get, as a podcast guest, how did you get back on track talking about podcast hosting? How did you wrap that back into the core theme?
Yeah, it's not easy, but as you do more and more podcasts, you get into the habit just to feel it and just go back to the right track, I guess. You need practice and you need a lot of practice to act professional, whatever it comes. Of course, we can be vulnerable and I mean, I got teary-eyed sometimes when I talk about stuff, but then you're also a professional. So you try to balance it, but we are all human. So it can happen, and that's not a problem because we can be open, we can be vulnerable, and there's no shame about it. And yes, we are entrepreneurs. Yes, we are artists. We are what we are, but we are just human, and we have emotions, and they can kind of overbearing. But then we just go back to the business stuff as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we find a way to wrap back into that, and that is going to happen. And so be aware, be kind to yourself, have some grace for yourself that you are human, that those instances where we kind of get off track and we get a little emotional or we get sidetracked for a moment, it's okay. Because
Yes.
there's always a way to wrap back into what you were initially talking about. And here's the thing, those are the moments that make that podcast really special.
Yes.
And the biggest issue there is just being able to reconnect with your why. What are you talking about? Why are you doing what you're doing? And yet telling those stories as you go along that evolution of that interview, it's going to happen. Stuff is going to happen. And that's what makes every single interview so special, so interesting, because my life is different than your life. You've had
Yes.
seriously different, experiences. And those experiences make you very special, make your life special, and bring depth and richness to it. So, as people are promoting an episode, that often gets overlooked by the guests. And I've had this happen many times where somebody will connect with me and say, hey, we're looking for a podcast for this particular person, blah, blah, blah. And I'll even ask, hey, will they be willing to promote that episode? And some people will say, well, that person's not overly social. And what they forget is the more that they promote it, the more it gets heard, the more whatever they're trying to say gets heard, whether it's a service, a book, an offering of whatever sort, the more that they promote it, the more it gets heard. So what's your advice for guests to maximize reach and engagement after the episode goes live?
I mean, that's a brilliant question, Dr. Summer. I mean, yes, many people want to reach the goals and the dreams with podcast guesting, but they forgot to promote the episode. And sometimes they come back to me, so why I'm not getting, clients and everything, business out of it? Like, well, you have to work for that. Because, I mean, podcast guesting is a marketing strategy, is a marketing tool. It's really important if you use it wisely. We also have like a special package basically that help people to repurpose the content that they created with the host, because it's evergreen content that you create. You can use it basically forever. If your topic is like that, once you have the episode aired, get in touch with the host if they haven't gotten in touch with you before. And many hosts will, provide you with promotional materials, short clips, audio clips, or even, images. Yeah, start using them. And you can just basically rinse and repeat it. Like, people won't remember on LinkedIn what you posted 2 days ago. So they won't remember what you posted 2 weeks, a month ago. So you can always just come back and repost those episodes, find different clips, find different images, and just use the content. I think that's just so important. And remember also to tag the host, because once you tag a host, for example, on LinkedIn, you will reach not only your audience, but the host's audience. And that's an amazing, marketing tool. And so many people forget about it. And they share it maybe once on Instagram, once on Facebook, and that was it. But they forget about it. Like, you can use it basically forever, because you created so amazing content. So many people complain about, I don't know what to post on social media, how to post things. I mean, and they have a ton of interviews on their hands, and you just need to repurpose it, use it wisely. And you have, like, I think you do 6-10 episodes and you create content maybe for a year when it comes to podcast interviews. And also, which I always tell them, like, just send a thank you note if you can, like a card. I mean, that's amazing if you can do that to the podcast host, or if you email it, that's okay too, but just say thank you. And there are other podcast hosts right now, they're doing these kind of post interviews and like post chats after the interview. So they get together and they try to figure out with the guest how to help each other with their business, how to be in each other master classes or webinars. Because I think, and not just me think, but like the whole world thinks, that podcasting is kind of the 21st century's networking, the amazing networking opportunity. So this is what we're doing here. This is just the beginning of a great relationship. And we can have a business relationship, a friendship. It really depends on us. But this is just a starting point. And what we do with it, it always depends on us as a guest.
Absolutely. All great points. Exceptional. And depending on how long that podcast host has been doing a podcast, their network could be rather large.
Yes.
And so it's really beneficial to keep in touch with that podcast host, to create maybe that friendship, that connection, because they also know other podcasters. They know other folks that maybe are interested in what you're selling, because they talk to hundreds of people, right?
Every day.
Every day, every year, every week. And so they are well connected with a big network. And it doesn't have to just be on one platform like LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram. It could be that they have networks on all of them. Yeah. And so with that said, people are asking them questions. They're talking about those podcast episodes. They're making comments. They're mentioning them in their posts. So keep connected with that host, because you never know what they know, and they don't always have the time to reach out and say, oh, by the way, this person was really interested in what you had to say. And so if you're reaching out to them and have that connection, have maybe that friendship, they're going to say, oh, by the way, yeah, hey, they mentioned you over on Instagram, or maybe you got mentioned on TikTok, or hey, maybe you want to tap into such and such. Because what I always tell the listeners as well is, reach out to those folks that you've listened to on those podcast episodes, because they want you to. They want to know more about you. They want to know who's listening to those podcast episodes.
Yes.
And it may be how they can be of support to you as well. So, because obviously the listeners found something that you said interesting.
Yes,
so
true.
Keep connected with your listeners as well. So we have covered so much ground here. I love our conversation. As we come to the close of the interview, if you could offer one simple but powerful tip for podcast guests to keep in mind, what would it be?
My motto in life, in business, in podcast guesting, just keep going. So never give up. Once you start podcast guesting, it's not an easy journey, because you will get a lot of no's from the podcast host. The podcasting world is so booked up right now. There are a lot of podcasts, but there are, people are queuing up to be guests on podcasts. You have to stand out, but Don't give up. Never give up. Just keep going. If you get 2 no's, that's okay, because you learn from those no's, and then the next 5 will be a yes. But be persistent, be consistent, whatever you're doing, and just keep going.
Thank you. Thank you, Noemi, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you, Dr. Summer.
Absolutely. You can follow Noemi Beres on LinkedIn and Instagram and at podcastconnections.co.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.